This is Conversations
with Ronnie Keith
and Iris. Conversations
with Ronnie Keith
and Iris. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. We really appreciate it. We thank you so much for all of the feedback and the downloads that we received last week for our little crazy tale about our adventure to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
That's right. It was a lot of feedback. I appreciate all the love and support from the audience. And thank you for allowing us to share our experience in Tennessee.
Absolutely. And even though I won't be back, we still had a great time, as I stated, with family. Do want to take a few moments here just to give a quick shout out to a few cities that downloaded us last week and is still continuing to download us here. Not going to go through all of them, but Paris, France, Sydney, New South Wales, Ashburn, Virginia, Leesburg, Florida, Monroe, Louisiana, Glasgow, Kentucky.
Wow.
And I'm not even going to, I think it's Mannheim, Baden-Württemberg. So that's Germany. So thank you guys.
Thank you for the love and support.
Yeah, really, really appreciate it. So we have something special for you guys as usual. You know, every other week, Iris and I try to get together and just talk with us, but we also have extraordinary special guests with us from time to time.
From all walks of life.
Absolutely. So this week we have a special guest on. This person that we have on, his name is Dr. Mort Orman. He's an internal medicine physician, but has become a anger elimination coach as well. And so we're going to have him on now with Iris and I to discuss all of his life-changing anger cures for people, relationship anger, all the things that can help eliminate some of the anger issues that we may run into. And so Dr. Orman has such a very, very, very interesting life, as he started out being an internal medicine doctor 50 years ago and then transitioned to anger elimination.
And he has within 4 decades of experience. We're talking 33 books and more than 100 workshops under his belt. I mean, he has helped professionals and doctors and business leaders and even to FBI personnel and just understanding to eliminate an unwanted anger. So today we're going to dive into this revolutionary approach. I'm very excited about it.
Absolutely. Dr. Orman, thank you so much for joining Iris and I on Conversations with Ronnie Keith and Iris. How are you today?
I am fine. Thank you for having me and for allowing me to speak to your audience.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Dr. Orman. So we really, really are excited about this, as, you know, anger issues follow us every day, not only in our personal life, but in business as well, on your jobs and things like that. And so first question we really wanted to dive in with you is, you started out being an internal medicine doctor 50 years ago. What made you get into internal medicine, and then after that, to switch over to being an anger elimination coach?
Well, I actually did not grow up wanting to be a doctor. I even grew up wanting to definitely not be a doctor, but my parents wanted me to be a doctor, so they were pushing me. But I never wanted to really do it, and it was only by accident that I ended up in this field.
Wow!
If you can believe that, I liked science, so I got really turned on to science very early in my school career. So when I went to Duke University many years ago, and I took all the pre-med courses because that's where you get the best science classes. But I knew I wasn't going to go into medicine, but it made my parents happy, and it gave me the best science classes. So my senior year, I decided to apply for a biochemistry fellowship. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do biochemistry. So I scheduled an appointment with the head of the department, and I went in and talked to him. And meanwhile, I had applied to medical school again to make my parents happy, and I even got accepted, but I definitely wasn't going to go. So I go into this meeting with the head of the biochemistry department at Duke, and I tell him my story, and I said I want to be a biochemist, and I applied to medical school. I'm not going to go. And after I spoke for a couple minutes and it was his turn to talk, he looked me straight in the eye. He leaned forward, looked me in the eye, and he said, "Are you some kind of an idiot?"
Oh
And
my goodness!
not what I
Right
was
in front of your
expecting,
face.
right to my face.
Oh,
And he was dead serious. And he was, and that really shocked me. I did not expect that for him to say that. But what he said was, he said, "Don't you know that if you want to be a biochemist, you'd be much better off with an MD degree than a PhD degree? You'd have a much better lifestyle than how I have to live, constantly searching for grants and trying to get grant money and all this kind of stuff. And don't you know that you can go to medical school and you don't have to end up being a practicing physician?" Well, I didn't actually know either of those two things. I was very naive at the time. And so he
wow.
really did me a favor, and he straightened me out on that. And then he said, "What's the worst that can happen? You go, and suppose you hate it after the first year. Come back here. I'll give you a position." So he took all the barriers away, and I said, "All right,
Mhm.
what do I have to lose?" So I decided I'll give it a try. Again, I went in planning to be a biochemist, and then I just got turned on to, taking care of patients and practicing medicine, and that's how I ended up with this 50-year career. If I hadn't had that 15-minute conversation with that stranger who didn't know
Yeah.
me from anyone, that changed the whole trajectory of my life. That one discussion that one day.
And that's amazing how just a 15-minute
It
conversation.
just change your life, right?
Right, right. So
Yeah.
let me ask you, Dr. Orman, you said something there about PhD and MD. Can you explain to the audience, just, briefly, high level, what is the difference between obtaining a PhD and obtaining an MD?
Well, it's not. I don't think it's the degree that makes the difference. It's what you're planning, what you're training to do.
Hmm.
So in medicine, you train for 4 years to take care of patients who
Hmm.
get sick.
Hmm.
And that's your
Yeah.
focus. That's your focus. You get an MD degree at the end of 4 years, but you still can't really function very well without another several years of internship and residency. So it's like kind of at least a minimum of 7 years before you're actually be able to be on your own taking care of patients without any supervision. In those last 3 years, you're taking care of patients, but you have a lot of people supervising you and watching over you and making sure you don't mess anything up. And you're learning the whole time. So it's really a sort of a 7-year apprenticeship for a particular job function, where you're going to go out in the world and people are going to come to you with illnesses, or they'll be in the hospital with illnesses, and you're trained to take care of them. Um, so that's hugely different from PhDs, which are more academic. You research a topic, you pick the topic you want to study, and that you want to write a paper about, do a thesis about, and there's multiple different ways you can go with that. The medicine is fairly uniform training. It does vary from
Mm.
one medical school to another a little bit, but basically you all need to learn the same basic skills of how to be a doctor and take care of anything that happens to any person that might come to you.
And I appreciate that, doctor, for providing those differences, because that's something that, had came, when I was trying to pursue after my MBA. Where do I go from there? And it's good to know PhD as well. It's basically based more on research. As you mentioned, your mentor in your school did mention that he's constantly chasing grants and approval for those things. It's good to emphasize on the two differences for our audience members out there that maybe are struggling with that.
Yeah,
So I appreciate that.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So,
So that got me into medicine, and then I opened my
mhm,
practice. Now, but going through medical school and going through those 3 years of internship and residency, I started to develop a lot of anger issues, anger mainly at
mm,
myself if I would
Oh,
mess
wow.
something up, but then it kind of spread to where I would get angry at other people. When I opened my practice, I would get angry at my patients from time to time if they didn't follow my advice or they
yeah.
made bad decisions, did stupid things. So I had kind of a short fuse. I took up tennis in my late 20s, and I was literally like John McEnroe on the tennis court. Not
Oh,
tennis
wow.
wise, not tennis wise, but I would yell and scream at myself and disturb the people playing on either side of me, and
Throw down
it
your
was
racket, throw it somewhere.
yeah, smash your racket. Yeah, I broke a bunch of rackets
Oh,
during
Take
my
all
day.
your frustration out on the ball, on the
But
racket.
every time I missed a shot that I thought I should have made, I'd get really furious with myself. So,
wow.
so yeah, I didn't, as a kid, I didn't have a lot of anger issues, but when I got to be college age and in medical school, I started to develop the anger issues. But then the other interesting thing is when you're a doctor and you're taking care of patients, we easily recognize the angry people from the non-angry people in our practice.
Mm-hmm.
And we see what happens over time. Most other occupations, you don't get that perspective that all doctors get, where we see what happens to people who have anger issues versus those that don't. And it's very glaring. It's very glaring to me that, over first couple of years of practice, you could see that the angry people had more health problems. They had more heart attacks, strokes, high blood pressure, all kinds of other illnesses. And then they'd come in, they'd tell you about their family situations, and they'd be getting divorced, or their kids wouldn't talk to them anymore, or their business partnership just blew up, or they got addicted to alcohol or drugs or something because they couldn't control their emotions, or they had some major legal issue where they got angry and hurt somebody, and now they're facing lawsuits, and it's all kinds of crazy stuff that happens out of anger. And you're sitting there watching this and realizing you have your own anger issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so that made me realize I've got to do something about it. So I started, I tried all the standard anger management stuff at the time, and none of it really helped that much, maybe a little bit here and there. But it got me interested in doing personal development work, where I kind of knew I wasn't getting the answers from the standard anger management stuff. So I needed to explore some other avenues. And I did a couple of years of personal development work, and that really paid off eventually, not right away. But eventually I was able to put together some things from different programs, some insights from different programs, and finally figured out what the hell was going on whenever I was getting angry. Stuff that nobody had ever taught me. I didn't learn in medical school, all my 7 years of training. I even dabbled in psychology a little bit and did some training there. And I didn't get any of these insights until much later on, when I happened to stumble upon them. And I was very fortunate that I had that good luck to do that. And then once I started working with these new distinctions and new insights, it's like, wow, now not only can I control my anger, which I didn't even think was possible, but now I understand why I couldn't before, because I was missing some of the key puzzle pieces that were invisible,
So let me ask you this. Thank you for that. What do you think induced the anger? Was it the job? Was it going through medical school?
The patients.
What do you think induced that anger in your 20s?
Well, life induces anger. I mean, you walk out your door.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody makes a face at you or criticizes you or something. You drive on the road and somebody honks their horn at you. Medicine has its stresses. As I mentioned, I would get angry if my patients wouldn't follow my advice, which was frequent, because people do what they want to do and they don't necessarily listen to their doctors. So life can make you angry if you don't understand how your brain generates the anger, which I didn't. And most of us don't today, by the way. If you look around today and you see all the anger in the world, you turn on your television, you scroll social media, you see all the people who can't control their anger. It's not an accident why that's happening. They don't know what's really causing their anger to occur. They think they know, but they're missing the key puzzle pieces, like I was missing them in my 20s and 30s.
When you were going through these anger issues in your 20s, and you had mentioned missing the key puzzles, to how to really control it. When you really did find out, okay, now I understand what is making me angry, what is driving this. Yeah. Was that like an aha moment? Like, oh my God, when was the epiphany or turning point where you're like, I have to spread the word about this cause and teach others how to manage and control their anger? When did that happen?
It was a gigantic aha. I mean, it was such a big aha. If you'd asked me before I understood this, if you'd asked me if I ever thought there was the slightest chance of me not having anger problems or not waking up each day being an angry person, I would say, I don't think it's possible. I think that's just part of my personality. I think that's just who I am now. I've tried a zillion things to change it and control it. None of them worked. My conclusion is that's just the way I am. And I'm probably always going to be that way. So I would have never believed that what I was able to do, I did, because I didn't know that I was missing anything at the time. I didn't know there were any insights that I didn't have. I thought I had the whole story. And with the puzzle pieces I had, I couldn't really do much, which is what happens for most people today.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I uncovered the missing puzzle pieces that I went like, oh, holy cow. Now I know why I couldn't do anything before, because I was missing half of the action. And that action, the missing puzzle pieces I'm talking about, are how our brain creates anger. It's not, the anger doesn't come from what other people do or don't do. And that's the trigger that can trigger anger, but it doesn't guarantee that anger will occur. What guarantees the anger occurs is what our brain does with that. And that's all invisible. We can't see our brain operating. We can't see we can't feel it. We can't see it. We can't taste it, touch it. It's all going on invisibly and unconsciously. But if you can learn about it and you can understand the mechanism, there's a formula that produces anger that our brain uses. And one of the first things I realized in general about the human brain is that it's constantly filtering everything that we see. We're never seeing things purely as they are. There's just too much data coming into our senses. If you could put a measuring device and measure all the bits of data that are flowing into our eyes and our senses from our environment, it's enormous, the amount of data. So our brain can't process it all. So it has to be selective. It only focuses on certain things that it thinks is important. So particularly anything about keeping you alive, it's going to consider important. But if you have a project or a mission or a purpose or something you're working on, your brain's going to, anything related to that, it's going to consider important. But it's only going to show us what it thinks we need to see, because it has to cut out a lot of stuff to simplify and to make it easy for us to make decisions and do what we need to do. So our brain's constantly filtering in the background and we don't see it. All right. Right. And all of our emotions have come from different filters, ways our brains filter the world so that we see it in a certain way. And when you see it in that way, then you get the emotion. And there's, for example, for anger, there's three primary filters that our brain uses to tell us how to look at the world. And if you look at the world through those three filters, you will have the emotion of anger. And I can explain them to you and to your audience very quickly.
Yes, please do.
It'd be good to write them down, because this will be useful for the rest of your life, whoever's listening to this. Mm-hmm. From this point forward, you always know why anger occurs when you get angry, or when anybody else gets angry for that matter. So our brain is always telling us these three things, that whatever happened, the first filter is it was bad and wrong and shouldn't have happened, shouldn't have been done. So notice we never get angry if we looking at the world and we think somebody did something wonderful, terrific, fantastic. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Iris, when was the last time you got angry at Ronnie when he did something wonderful?
I actually got angry with him
when I did something wonderful.
When you did something wonderful. Okay, that's a different story.
It's usually something he's not doing that he should be doing.
Yes, because if you were to tell me what did I get angry about, I was like, well, I would say about an hour ago we were fighting about his desk. Apparently, I move things around, and that's not the case, sir.
So it's usually the first filter is we see whatever we're angry about, or the person we're angry with, or the thing we're angry with. They did something bad and wrong they shouldn't have done. Is the first filter. The second filter is there was some negative impact. Somebody was hurt or harmed or negatively impacted, or could have been negatively impacted by the bad and wrong behavior.
Mm-hmm. Or their feelings, right? Is that what you would say? Like negatively impacted, like, oh, you hurt their feelings too, right? And emotional.
That's a negative impact. Yeah. There are lots of different kinds of negative impacts, but hurting somebody's feelings is a negative impact. Yeah. To that person who's got the hurt feelings. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the third filter is what I call unilateral blame. So it's a very narrow view of blame. You look at the person who did the bad and wrong thing, and you only see and focus on what they did or didn't do, and you block out anything else. It's like you have horse blinders on, or your brain has horse blinders on, and it won't allow you to see any other factors that played a role. You only can see what that person did or didn't do, and you focus on that intently. So and when you get those three filters, and you line them up one right after another, and you believe they're all true, and your brain tells you they're all true, you get the emotion of anger. Now, if you had a different emotion, let's say you have anxiety one day about something, those are different filters that your brain's using. But whenever you have anger, and it can be any form of anger, it can be very mild anger, like, oh, I'm just irritated, I'm just annoyed, I'm standing in line, it's not moving as fast as I want it to, or I'm in traffic or something like that. Or it can be huge anger, where you're ready to really hit somebody or punch somebody. Not recommended. But when you get to that intensity of anger where you feel like you want to do something like that, you get angry. So, for example, if you were working at your computer one day and you just spent a couple hours, you did this great piece of work and you're really proud of it, and all of a sudden your computer screen goes blank, and you feel like you want to punch the computer.
Yes.
Why did you get that emotion? Well, your brain told you to look at that event through these three filters. Your computer did something wrong it shouldn't have done. It should not cut out on you when you're working, right? And particularly when you've done a whole lot of good work, because you might have lost it.
Right.
And then certainly, so that's one negative impact. You might have lost your work. Second negative impact is now you can't continue to work until you get your computer running again. So there's negative impacts. And then who was responsible to blame for your computer stopping to work? It was your computer.
It's a computer, yeah.
And when you see it that way, okay, now your brain, if you happen to have accidentally hit a key that made it happen, your brain won't let you see that.
Right.
Your brain's gonna filter that out. It's gonna filter that out, and it's only gonna see the computer stop working.
And that happened to me just last week. I got so upset because I was working on something here, and I was working on an Excel spreadsheet, and all of a sudden my computer went black, and immediately anger came over me so bad I wanted to just break the laptop part of my computer in half.
Yes.
Because I've been working on it for hours.
Yes.
Come to find out, I'm blaming the computer.
Yes.
And it was me because I had moved one of my chargers, and that had disconnected the charger to the computer.
Oh, I've done that.
My goodness.
I've done that.
It drained the battery, and this thing I know, my computer died.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Very good. See, that's the thing about anger.
Oh my goodness.
Our brains are very often tricking us when we're angry. Remember, it's filtering things. It's leaving stuff out. It's not letting us see the whole picture. So we're only getting a filtered view of what happened, and it may be distorted in some way. It may be inaccurate in some way. But based on what our brain presents to us and tells us is the truth, we react to that. And then later on, we find out, oh my gosh, it wasn't the computer, it was me. What happens to the anger in that moment? Well, the anger at the computer goes away. You may be angry at yourself now that you didn't recognize that you hadn't connected the charger cord properly. But it definitely goes away from the computer because now you see the situation differently. It wasn't the computer's fault.
Right.
Okay. And now the anger at the computer completely disappears. It's eliminated.
Yes.
You didn't have to punch a punching bag. You didn't have to meditate. You didn't have to take 10 deep breaths. You just saw the situation differently. Oh, it wasn't the computer. It was the fact the cable wasn't connected.
That's so funny that you said that because I feel like 80% of my anger comes from work. Definitely. It comes from work because we deal with, how do I say it, special people at work. Like you could write them like a kindergarten email. This is what I need you to do. And still they come back and do something that you didn't ask them to do, like completely different. Yes. I feel like I go through that a lot at work. And what I typically do is I just walk away because I want to make sure like my initial response back, it doesn't have any feelings or anything like that. And and the reason why I'm bringing that up is it's to ask you, should we walking away from our feelings?
What you're doing is fine. I would put that in the category of anger management. So you got triggered, you're angry and you don't want to make things worse.
Yes.
Okay. So there are strategies that fall under anger management. Okay, what do I do now that I'm angry? All right. Do I express it? Do I not express it? If I do express it, here's 10 different ways I could do it and have the pros and cons for each one. There's all kinds of strategies, but I like to work on the front end. How about if you could just turn the anger off so you don't have it?
Yeah.
How about if instead of getting triggered by when somebody does something like that, you stop being triggered so you don't have any anger that you now have to walk away and deal with, okay? Or make sure you don't say something inappropriate or do something inappropriate until it settles down. It would be, most of us, if you ask people who have anger issues or bothered by anger in any way, you have two choices. You can manage your anger for the rest of your life every time it comes up, or you can learn how to stop getting angry. Which would you rather have?
I would like to stop getting angry, but Dr. Orman, isn't that just a part of life, getting angry about
Like a
things?
natural emotion.
Yeah, like
Well, it is and it isn't. The way we live life right now, it is part of life because we don't know any better. And we're missing the puzzle pieces that could make it different. So in that scenario, with those conditions, it is going to be a frequent, reoccurring part of life that's just going to keep happening, and you're not going to be able to stop it pretty well because you don't understand the mechanism that's causing it. But once you understand these three filters that I mentioned, and remember, you can write these down on a piece of paper or a sticky note or an index card. It only takes 6 words: bad, wrong, negative impact, unilateral blame.
That's right.
Write those down and keep them where you can get to them whenever you need them. Whenever maybe not, you're not going to be able to do it in the moment that you're angry, but when you're removed from the situation and you're going back and analyzing it, why did I get angry? Pull out that piece of paper or that index card or sticky note. This will tell you what your brain did to make you angry. And then you can start asking, well, is it true that they did something bad and wrong? So is it true, Ronnie, that your computer actually turned out to have done something bad and wrong that it shouldn't have done? No, when you don't hook up the electricity to the computer, it's going to stop working, and it's not doing something bad.
Right.
It's doing what a computer will do when you don't connect electricity to it for a while.
But like you said, the anger tends to transfer, right? So I wouldn't even say it transferred. I didn't transfer it to myself. It was more disappointment.
Disappointment in you? Yeah, the anger, it'll shift. It'll move from the computer, then it'll move to you. But the anger towards you is equally, it's caused by the same three filters. So you're looking at your own behavior now, and you're saying, I did something bad and wrong I shouldn't have done. I should have remembered to connect the computer cable. Right. I didn't. Okay. There was a negative impact to me. I almost lost my work. I could have lost my work. And who was responsible to blame? I was responsible to blame. And your brain tells you all three of those things is true. Okay. All right. But if you really stop and ask yourself, is it really true that you shouldn't have done that? Well, the answer is yes. You should always connect the electricity to the computer,
right.
Unless you have good battery power. But in a broader sense, if you look at it in a broader sense, is it true to have the expectation that you will never screw up and make an innocent mistake like that?
No,
we all do.
It happens.
Everybody. Like I said, I've done it myself. I've had the same thing happen to me. We're all going to do it. So for you to come down on yourself real hard. Because of that, like you should have not done that. It's like a place to blame somewhere.
Yeah,
it's a lie that your brain is telling you in that moment.
Yeah,
make you angry.
Yeah.
And if you believe it and accept it, you will be angry or disappointed or whatever the low level intensity negative emotion that you had about yourself. But if you stop and analyze it and say, is it really true? Should I really have beat myself up for this? The answer is no. Forgive yourself. It's an innocent mistake. We all make innocent mistakes. It's not a big deal.
So it sounds to me, now you correct me if I'm wrong. Earlier when Iris was talking about what happened with her at her job, do you not believe in the 1, 2, 3 breath? Let me take a deep breath.
And that's good that you bring that up, because I wanted to ask him something about that, because
those are all, again, anything you do to calm yourself down once you get angry is great.
Yeah, because I feel like I like your approach on anger elimination and all the challenges, and it's like conventional wisdom, right? And I feel like we mentioned this already. Many of us believe anger is natural and like a necessary emotion, right? It's not. We clearly kind of rule that out.
It is and it is. I mean, it has evolutionary advantages, or it wouldn't be here. So it kept us alive, many years, and still even today can keep us alive. There's a lot of positive aspects to anger where it is useful. It helps you set boundaries. It helps let people know when you've crossed a boundary, and you let them know you're displeased with their behavior. So it has some benefits, but I would say 80% of the time, like the kind of anger that you mentioned, somebody
Mm-hmm.
sends you an email and doesn't behave the way you expect them to behave,
Yeah.
and that happens a gazillion times a day, and every time it happens, you get triggered. That's not good.
Yeah. It's
That's not
not.
that's not
It's not.
useful. That's not useful anger. That's stirring up your blood pressure. That's putting you at risk for all kinds of things down the road over time. That's something you would be better off not if you didn't have those reactions all day
That's
long,
true.
and people didn't have that power to tweak you in that way. It would be great. And the way to get there is to realize that every time you get triggered, it's your brain has sent you these three filters and told you to believe them, and also told you don't question them, don't ask.
And
Don't inquire as to whether there might be some truths that are missing from the equation.
and would you say that the trigger words are more effective than what people consider out there than traditional anger management, different techniques? Because there's so many out there, that we follow or some people follow. So would you say that's the main difference of it?
Well, like I said, anything that helps once you've gotten angry, anything that helps to quiet you down, calm your nervous system down, calm your physiology down, keep you from, punching something, keep you from damaging something or saying something you'll later regret. Any of those things is great. All right. But it still doesn't deal with the issue of what happens the next time somebody sends you an email
Yeah,
that you don't like.
that's true.
What happens the next time somebody looks at you sideways and, triggers you? Wouldn't it be great if you weren't as so reactive to that stuff? And you can't just get there like right away by saying, okay, I'm going to stop being reactive. You're going to be reactive. It's part of your makeup. Until you do this, what we're talking about here over and over again, many, many times, where you get triggered, you get angry, you say, okay, now let me look at the three filters. Let me see which ones are true or not. And oh my gosh, the second one isn't true, or the first one isn't true. And you do that 30 or 40 times, and each time you find out one of the three filters is faulty in some way. After a while, that 31st time, you may not be so reactive because you're going to know, oh my God, the last 30 out of the last 30 times, something was wrong with the filters my brain was giving me when I reacted with anger. Now, on the 31st time, what am I going to predict? When I get angry the 31st time, I'm going to predict that my brain probably tricked me again. I don't know how, but probably did.
Right. So,
and then you start to get suspicious
right.
every time you get angry that your brain is tricking you. And most of the time, you'll find out that it really was. Now, every once in a while, it won't. It'll be telling you the three things will be true. But 9 out of 10 times, there's going to be a flaw in one or more of those filters.
So let me ask you this, Dr. Orman. What for you listed a lot of things earlier on in your life when you became an internal medicine practicing doctor, things like that, before you shifted more towards elimination, anger elimination coaching. Was there a specific event that occurred outside of all the other things? You had the other anger issues. It would with with the patients, just with your colleagues, even with tennis. But was there a specific event that occurred that caused you to go, you know what, I need to get this under control. I need to work on myself, eliminating this anger?
Yes and no. So I was aware that the anger was bad for me. Again, remember I told you I'm seeing the damage that it created in people's lives by taking care of them as their doctor. So, and I had my own. Every one of my relationships with every woman I ever got involved with ended one right after another. Usually, anger played a role in that. So I didn't want that pattern to continue. And by the way, my wife and I just celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary this year.
Oh, congratulations.
Which
Oh,
I
that's
guarantee
amazing.
you
What a blessing.
would not have happened if I didn't have that index card.
Oh, congratulations. We've been happily married. How many years now, babe? 11? 11.
Yeah.
We're not that high like you or above there,
You'll
but
get there.
we're going to get there.
You'll get there. Yeah. But for me, that was a real breakthrough. You know, if I hadn't understood anger the way we're talking about here today, I don't think that would have happened. You know, I would have been a divorce waiting to happen, guaranteed. Okay. So, so I had the motivation, all right, but there was something that happened, and what happened was, remember, I was doing this personal development work, and I was getting all these cool insights, and I was in this space where people were talking about potential and possibility, and you have talents within you that you don't know you have, and you know, and I was hearing all that, but I really wasn't believing any of it. All right, and nothing had changed for me in my life at that point. And one day I decided I'm going to test this new age BS out. Matter of fact, I'm going to prove that it doesn't work. What I did.
Okay.
So I said, because one thing I knew that I really hated was running. I tried to get myself to run many times, and it was a miserable experience. I hated it. I would quit after 3 days. I had definitely had an identity that I am not a runner. And anybody that runs long distances has to be like clinically insane and needs to be in a mental hospital. Literally, that was my relationship to running. And I said to myself, if I can turn my relationship to running around to where I actually enjoy running and could actually run a marathon, I believe that this stuff works.
Yeah. Wow.
And I didn't think that was ever in the cards, that would ever happen. But I said, I'm going to test it. I'm going to go out. I'm going to sign. I did this crazy thing. I signed up for a marathon in my town 5 months away. And I said, all right, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to figure out how to enjoy the daily running I'm going to have to do to train myself to do that. So I got to figure out how to do that. I got to figure out what's going on and how am I making running into a horrible experience, because it definitely feels like it's running's fault, not my fault. I created that project for myself, and lo and behold, it worked. And what I discovered was there are all these ways all these missing puzzle pieces of how I was relating to running and how I was thinking about running and actually running, that made it into a horrible experience, which I had never seen before. They were all invisible, but they were in my brain and they were in my being. For example, my mother's most famous phrase was, no pain, no gain.
I like that.
And I adopted that. And so whenever I went out to run, I would, go from not running for 6 months, and I'd go to a track and I'd go out and I'd run a mile as fast as I could. And it was horrible.
Yeah.
But I believe no pain, no gain. Well, one of the first things I did in this project was I says, I'm getting rid of that. In my new running program, I'm taking all the pain out.
Yeah.
The minute I have any kind of discomfort, I'm going to stop and walk.
Yeah, because you start to resent it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So so that was a great choice to do it that way. But anyhow, so I went through several months, and I discovered all these invisible puzzle pieces of how I was making running horrible. I ended up running that first marathon in like 3 hours and 20 minutes, which was a pretty good pace. And went on to not just run more marathons, but I actually taught people who hated running how to enjoy running by taking the principles that I had learned and showing them how these same things go on for them around running as well. And that's what led me to say, okay, guess what? These same patterns I just discovered about running are not limited to running in my life. They're in my stress I was experiencing. They're in the anxiety I was experiencing, the fear of public speaking I was having, the anger that I was having. There are all these invisible puzzle pieces that I haven't uncovered yet that I need to uncover if I'm going to solve these problems. And so I did. I cured my public speaking fear, which was enormous. I cured my relationship failures, which was a huge problem that most people don't ever turn around. I cured my anger problems. It was all by the same, and the event, the thing that kicked it all off was having this success around running, which again, I would have never predicted. As a matter of fact, I would have predicted would have failed, but it didn't. And
Wow.
that was the huge breakthrough. That was me. That was the equivalent of me stepping one foot onto the moon.
Mm.
Having that order of breakthrough, that I
Right.
would have never believed possible for me to like running and to run a marathon. I would have never considered that possible. Just like I didn't consider being able to speak in front of a group and not be nervous, or be able to go through life and not be triggered to be angry. I would have never thought those things were possible, but they were once you understand these hidden puzzle pieces. And I just gave you and your audience the formula, the secret formula. This literally gives you X-ray vision now, like Superman type X-ray vision whenever you're angry. And it's great for couples, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So when either one of you gets angry at the other, hopefully that never happens, but if it ever should happen, okay, you both now know exactly where, whoever's the angry person, you know what their brain is doing, okay?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
telling you you're looking at their behavior and they're like, they did something bad and wrong, something they shouldn't have done.
Mm-hmm.
They were hurting or harming, somebody or something you cared about, and they were unilaterally responsible to blame, which means you had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And frequently, definitely in a relationship, that third one is almost never true.
Yeah,
It's almost never true
Oh.
that we have nothing to do with any of the things we're angry about in the other person. But some of the other ones might not be true either. But at least you know exactly where the anger is coming from whenever
Mhm.
it gets triggered.
Right.
And then
Manifests
you
itself.
can look at it more deeply and tell the truth more deeply about those three filters, the way your brain is telling you to look at it. And you often find that there's some missing facts that are very relevant.
And thank you for that, Dr. Orman. And one of the things that I want to definitely emphasize to let our audience members know is that you have tons of YouTube videos and your programs out there. And I listened to a couple of your YouTube videos, and I love how you emphasize that anger isn't caused by external events, as you
Yeah.
mentioned, but rather by internal processes.
And
That's a very key thing.
we all know that's true, because we all know that you could be standing next to a friend and you both witness the same exact external event, and one of you will have an emotion about it and one of you will either not have an emotion or have a different emotion about it.
Yeah.
So it cannot be the external event. We all know that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what we don't know is this secret formula that I just gave you, is how your brain makes you angry. And by the way, the people who are most expert at making human beings angry know this formula very well. Do you know who those people are?
Who?
Who?
The media.
The media.
Yeah.
Ah.
The
Yeah.
media, their whole business model is make them angry, get them to
Yeah.
click.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. How do they do it? They give us three stories or three narratives. Somebody did something horrible, terrible, bad, and wrong. They shouldn't have done it. They hurt or harmed somebody, or they potentially hurt or harmed somebody, and they were unilaterally responsible or to blame. Nothing else played a role. It was just them.
Yeah.
And believe us, we're the media. We wouldn't lie to you. We
That's
wouldn't
right.
leave anything out.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
We're telling you
Absolutely.
the whole truth. There's nothing
Oh,
missing.
it really is. And also I've noticed that you've also worked with a wide range of professionals like
Mhm.
healthcare workers, corporate executives, and even FBI.
Yeah.
And
And
and I guess
we're all the same. We all have human brains.
yeah,
Where the
yeah, we all
brains are they're filtering all the time. And they all have, these are universal filters. This is the way anger gets created. I don't care where you live. I don't care whether it was 1,000 years ago you got angry or 1,000 years from now your brain is going to be doing the same thing. It says, look at the situation through these filters and believe it's true. Then you'll get angry. Works every time. The media knows it works every time because that's the stories that they send us when they want to make us angry.
That's
And
the way
they're
they
the
infiltrate.
pros. They're the experts at it.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Orman, thank you so much for today's conversation.
this has been great.
It has been excellent. I do want to sit here and tell our audiences that Dr. Orman does also have a website.
Mhm.
It is Doc Orman, DocOrman.com. You can go on that website and it has everything that you want there. He even has a free guide. He has
Yep.
books, videos, speaking engagements, everything.
Yep. And if you download the free guide that's there at the top of every page, it's called the best anger elimination method you can find. It gives you more information about anger. It's free, by the way. You get more information about anger. Talks about my 10-session coaching program that I developed and which was very successful for a lot of people. And it also talks about my recent book that I released, where you don't even have to go through the 10-session coaching program anymore. You just get the book and you can get everything that I teach in that program, and you can really have a blueprint for how you can use, not just know what these three filters are, but now how do you tell the truth about them? How do you interrogate them? How do you figure out what's true, what's not true? You got a lot of guidance in there about how to do that.
And Dr. Orman, I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us and basically giving us a key recipe to success. I feel like today we've learned that anger isn't inevitable. It's not, but rather than a learned response that really could be eliminated. And I appreciate you sharing all these powerful insights on shifting our perspective and really applying those techniques to these high stressful environments. So I'm really thankful for that. And I appreciate you going into that in a little bit detail.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, and this was a great conversation. What I will offer to you and Ronnie is, if any time in your relationship, the two of you together, if you get stuck on an anger issue that you can't get past and it's causing problems, give me a call. I'll be happy to do a free consultation for you and help you work through it.
Thank you so much for that. That means a lot. Yes. Really appreciate it.
It's like a get out of jail free card.
Monopoly card.
I'll be the one that needs
it. Hold on to it until you need it.
That's right. Remember, everyone.
It doesn't expire until I do. And then there might be, who knows, there might be an AI clone of me floating around somewhere.
And I just want to emphasize again, for those who want to, just dive deeper into your methods, and remember, you have websites, your website, your YouTube videos. Oh my God, your YouTube videos were amazing, Dr. Orman, very informative, and your programs. And I appreciate on how the audience could reach out to you. So thank you so much for your insights and your time. Very awesome.
And am I correct that you are in Orlando?
Yes. Well,
I'm in Sebastian. I'm like an hour and 15 minutes from here.
Oh, okay. You live by the beach. Okay.
So I could even come over to your house and give you a consultation.
That sounds great.
Oh, thank you.
Like I said, Dr. Orman, it'll probably be more me than her that needs to get out of jail.
I don't know about that.
Well, I'm saying I'm the one that'll make you upset. So
she's just better at hiding it.
Right.
That's right.
Remember, everyone, the three keys here. It was bad and wrong. It should not have happened.
Yep.
Some negative impact.
Yep.
And unilateral blame.
Unilateral blame. 100%.
Yes.
No other causes.
Absolutely. Again, thank you, Dr. Orman, for joining Conversations with
Ronnie Keith
and Iris.